Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this second CyberWiser.eu webinar. I'm Nicola Zazzeri, and I will moderate this webinar. So that will talk about the cybersecurity skill gap in Europe. Then we will briefly present the CyberWiser.eu project and the added value of it. And of course, we will wrap up with some recommendation or suggestion on how to tackle the cybersecurity skill gap issue in Europe. So let's deep dive into it. So as I said, the project is CyberWiser.eu. CyberWiser is an innovation action funded by the European Commission under the H2020 program. What the project is intended to achieve is to build an integrated cybersecurity training platform to build the workforce of tomorrow. So this is done by means of an online training platform together with an integrated cyber range that you will be seeing some hints presented by Pierluigi Cara, which is from RIA. The project will run from September 2018 through February 2021. And we are also featuring an open pilot stream for everyone who would like to get involved and to be, let's say, trained to use the CyberWiser.eu platform for free. So you can book your own pilot at the link that you see in the presentation. This leads me to another thing that I want to highlight before starting, which is our next event that will be held in Pisa, in Italy, in which basically, if you attend, you will have the opportunities to see a live demo of the CyberWiser.eu platform, but also, and most importantly, to build your own pilots. So you will have the opportunities to engage with the CyberWiser.eu team to present your organization and what are your needs, basically in terms of cybersecurity training, and we will tailor your own pilot around your needs. The registration are open and completely free, but we have some limited seats available. So if you would like to attend, please go on the website, which is www.cyberwiser.eu, under the events section, and register there to reserve your seat. So today's agenda, we will look at an introduction to the cyber skill gap in Europe, which will be done by Mario Bizzi from E.ON, which is partner in CyberWiser.eu. Then we will dive into the CyberWiser.eu project. We're going to listen of the learning path, which is has been provided there from Genser Erdogan from Sintef. And then we will dive into the cyber range aspect of the project, which will be presented by Pierluigi Cara from RIA. And then at the end, we have one of our esteemed stakeholder expert group member, which is Peter Meyer for HIO, which will wrap up this presentation, giving his independent view on the cyber skill gaps. And then at the end, we will have a 15-minute question and answer. So if you have any questions, please write it into the chat that you see here in the GoToWebinar tool, and we will take care of them in the last 15 minutes. So who's on the line today? We have a good representative coming from general public, but also SME and large companies and government coming from different countries around Europe. So I hope that this will be useful for all of you. And then I'll leave the floor now to Mario Bizzi, giving his presentation on the cybersecurity skill gaps.
Hi, good morning, everyone. It's Mario Bizzi from E.ON Corp. I'm responsible for the overall risk consulting practice in Italy with a prominent focus on cybersecurity. I'm very happy to be part of this discussion. Very interesting. It's pity that we have such a short time. Nevertheless, let's get to the subject. As you may know, At Aon, we analyze and transfer the cyber risk of a very large set of companies and public entities worldwide. So in this way, we are lucky enough to have a privileged observatory on what is actually happening with this phenomenon. And what's going on is that an unprecedented amount of attacks is heavily hitting all market sectors, from public entities to manufacturing, life science, entertainment, critical infrastructure, transportation, and so on. If you look at Closet, you know what Closet is a well-recognized scientific body in Italy on cybersecurity. They actually reported this year a global increase of 38% in major cyber hazard in 2018. This with respect to an average 9% growth in the previous 4 years. And so this consists in quite astonishing 4 times acceleration of growth in a single year. And also the average impact on victim companies ranges between $100,000 to $1 million. So despite some improvements in, let's say, bread and butter phishing attacks, where, for example, the click rate percentage has gone down from 25% to 3% in some simulated campaigns over the last 5 years from Verizon. Well, it still takes from hours to months to a company to discover the attack, and whereas first clicks and consequent breaches actually happen in minutes. And also, phishing is still a key step in a range of 75 to 95 of all recorded breaches last year, but this varying by vendor. And cyber crimes also, they're ranging from sabotage to massive data breaches, espionage, extortion, botnets, financial fraud through identity stealing, and they have become totally pervasive in a quite cross-sectorial fashion. And if this is not enough, the game is about to get much more complicated. As a matter of fact, as an increasingly complex environment where IoT, 5G, connected industrial control systems, edge computing, and also the intrinsic weaknesses of the human symbiosis with IT systems, starting from the mobile phones we use in everyday life, it all offers an exponentially expanding playground to attackers. And so this is driving losses of about $600 billion in 2018. And this is expected to rise significantly in a couple of years. The figures might be $3,000 to $5,000 billion. So all these considerations actually drive to a single conclusion. Cybersecurity preparedness and also diffuse technical competence is actually fundamental for any company, public entity in the market. And they are needed immediately. This is, for example, also reflected and witnessed by the efforts of many governments in Europe in building cybersecurity capabilities around the critical assets and infrastructures. And for example, in Italy, we have recently the NIS directive addressing more than 400 strategic companies and public bodies to reinforce their security posture. And also the same statement and urgency not only applies to basic behavioral policies, what we generally define awareness. And even though this is still a pillar of general security and must be drastically improved, but attacks are increasingly making use of articulated set of modes and tools as malware, ransomware, hacking, phishing, use of stolen credentials, misuse of credential, brute force, and so on. So indeed, notwithstanding the fact that more than half of the attacks are based on single steps, it's quite frequent, fairly frequent, to find attack paths with lengths up to 5 to 7 steps, achieving quite high success rates. Right in a recent report, we got more than 75% success rate in this kind of attack. So consequently, the market now needs to develop deeper and more structured cybersecurity capabilities. For example, the understanding of the attack path models, so how to discover, to interpret, to model, to be prepared to chains of malicious actions correlated into a structured attack. For example, defending a malware attack takes a very different approach. If the malware is dropped via social engineering or download or via a USB device brought by an insider. So we really need to be able to understand very well this kind of complexity. So getting to the point now of capacity in cybersecurity, it's well known and it's common experience of all of us that in EMEA we are suffering this major shortage of cybersecurity resources. This gap has been estimated in more than 140,000 people, but that in my view is a single data point for 2018, and it's related to pure technical stuff. And this doesn't actually reflect the steep evolution of our dependency from global IT ecosystems and interconnections in the next 5 years. So in my view, this figure may be 5 or 10 times higher if we consider the level of depth that security knowledge and culture should reach within every single organization. So it's more than reasonable to expect in the next 5 to 10 years a growth in security computer training outpacing the 47% recorded in 2019, as soon as we'll be moving towards a major security market where cyber skill will be eventually considered 100% risk to be managed at corporate level and not only an IT issue. And also, self-taught resources won't be the majority as it is today. So, at the same time, a key enabler for the massive diffusion of cyber skill, especially to SMEs and less IT-aware companies, for example, in manufacturing or in the public sector, will be the presence of more cost-effective training programs. Also, having the cyber risk management integrated within the business cycle of the company, with its risk appetite, its culture, its organization, and its size, it all demands for a tailored customization of training, which is a major aspect of the CYBERWISER project. So if we go to the next slide, what solutions? Well, you know that as Aon, we run a major survey across all our clients worldwide in various sectors, various sites. And so we asked them what are the 10 main risks that they perceive on their business. It's called Global Risk Management Survey. And the cyber risk is sadly within the top 10 risks. It was ranked 6. It's now ranked 6 globally this year compared to a ninth position of 4 years ago. So there's an increase in perception, and consequently the budgets are shifting to cover the technical and the governance gaps in the risk management posture of the companies. The private and public spending is polarizing around automation, around security topics. For example, we recently saw an EU-funded training program centered on Industry 4.0, which is already in place and will be renewed in the next 5 years from 2021. So significant budgets on security training. And the need for customized, for realistic, for cost-effective solutions, also enabling complex scenario simulation, will expectedly favor the most flexible and scalable training platforms, among which CyberWiser is very well positioned. So, therefore, we are fairly convinced that this initiative has very good opportunities for healthy growth in terms of business side and innovation capacity. Nicolo?
Thank you, Mario. Thank you for your intervention. Really nice insights on the cybersecurity skill gaps, which is something which is raising concern all across Europe, not only on SMEs and companies, but also governments as well. So there's a really need to tackle this issue in a proper way. So thank you, Mario. And again, if the audience has any question, please write it down in the chat. We would like now to move forward, and I'll leave the floor to Gencer Erdogan from Sintef, which will be introducing us to the CyberWiser.eu learning path. So
yes,
Gencer,
hello.
You could share your screen now.
Yeah, I shared my screen. Do you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So let's see. We can select this. Yes, so my name is Gencer Erdoğan. I am a research scientist at SINTEF, which is one of the largest independent non-profit research organization in Northern Europe. And we are based in Norway. So what I will present today, as Nicolo mentioned, is the CYBERWISER.eu learning path. So let's dive straight into it. The is, as you can see, for these 3 points, I will first give an overview of the learning path in CYBERWISER.eu, and then relate the learning path to the offering levels provided from the platform, as well as the technical assets and how they all relate to each other. And finally, I'll give an overview of the courses that are currently offered in the learning path. So let's see, next slide here. So what you see here in the figure is the 4 phases, as we call it, of the learning path. First of all, the learning path is constructed and aligned with well-known standards. So more specifically, aligned with ISO 27005, and also conceptually with respect to ISO 27001. So the first phase of the learning path is about cybersecurity and risk awareness. What the purpose of this phase is to train people, or at least give an introduction to people who do not necessarily have a technical background within security, to learn about common cyber risks and also be aware of them in general. And this phase also gives an introduction to what to expect in the coming phases of the learning path. So in the second phase is context establishment, and the courses that will be provided here are related to the context establishment phase typically found in such standards at ISO 27005. And the purpose is to understand the target of analysis and clearly understand how the bits and pieces of a system is linked, to be prepared for the third phase, which is about the cyber risk assessment. And this phase provides courses that are related to risk identification, risk estimation, and also risk evaluation. And by the way we evaluate risks are based on the well typically used likelihood times the consequence, which then gives us a risk level. And the focus we have in CyberWiser is that the risk level should be presented in economical terms. So a monetary loss, for instance. The fourth phase is about cyber risk treatment and cost-benefit analysis. And the purpose of this phase is to, first of all, learn how to identify appropriate countermeasures, but also do this in a cost-efficient manner. So to select appropriate countermeasures with respect to a given budget. So the learning path is provided sequentially as this figure, but that does not necessarily mean that one has to start from the beginning. So a more advanced technical trainee can start, for example, directly after the cyber risk assessment phase, if he or she like to. So what we see here is an overview of the learning pathway in relation to the offering levels. So the offering levels, there are 4 levels. The first one is primer, and then basic, and then intermediate and advanced. And horizontally on the figure, we see which part of the learning path, which I just described, are covered in these various offering levels. So the cybersecurity and risk awareness part is covered through the basic offering levels, while the context establishment and cyber risk assessment phases are covered in the basic, intermediate, and advanced levels, offering levels. And then finally, the cyber risk treatment and cost-benefit analysis is covered or provided through the intermediate and advanced offering levels. And below this, these lines, we see the technical assets and how they relate to both the learning path and also the offering levels. So these are the technical assets that enables the learning path and the courses, as well as the training scenarios that will be provided in the CyberRange platform. So first of all, we have the web portal and the cross-learning facilities. So these are basically represent the dashboard that the user can log into and access the CyberRange and carry out both courses, as well as get access to the CyberRange in order to carry out training scenarios. Then we have other technical assets such as training manager, where the trainers can use to design scenarios, and also digital library that contains a set of templates ready to be instantiated, simulated infrastructure management, which is used by those who operate the CyberRange, so to correctly set up the infrastructure to be simulated, which then is ready for the scenarios to be carried out. And in addition to this, there are a set of monitoring capabilities, such as sensors and also anomaly detection reasoner, and also a centralized logging component, which basically logs the events carried out by the trainees, the trainers, and also, well, basically the participants of the CyberRange while the exercise or the scenarios are evolving and carried out. And for the technical assets that will be provided in intermediate and advanced levels, they are performance evaluator, which is used to evaluate the training based on what they have carried out. Economic risk evaluators, in order to, as mentioned, to carry out cyber risk treatment and cost-benefit analysis, which is also covered by this technical asset, and also countermeasure simulator and vulnerability assessment tool. So the countermeasure simulator is used, typically used by the blue team to identify countermeasures, while vulnerability assessment tools can be used by a so-called red team to carry out attacks. And so this next brings me to the current courses that are available. So as mentioned, we have a set of awareness courses, and as mentioned also in the first presentation, there are a set of cyber risks that are typically where people are highly exposed to, and some of these are mentioned in our awareness courses. So we have the phishing awareness course for phishing attack, password weakness, ransomware, data leakage, and insider threat. In addition to this, we have introduction courses to cyber risk analysis and cybersecurity, as well as cyber risk assessment, and also a more hands-on training for the awareness part, which is offered at the basic offering level. And the course is currently available at for the context establishment phase. They are basically 3 courses. The first one is about describing the target of analysis. As mentioned, it's important to understand the target before even carrying out an analysis. Identify and describe the security assets that we would like to protect. And also identify and describe threat profiles at a high level, which will be an input to a more detailed risk assessment. And finally, we also have one course for the cyber risk assessment part currently, which is about identifying risks. And what we do here is also to present the modeling language we use to model risks, and also to communicate the risks in a pedagogical manner. So basically, this was a high-level introduction to the learning path. So thank you, and I will be happy to take some questions.
Yeah, thank you, Genser. Very clear. I think we have some questions coming in from the audience, and so we will make sure to answer them during the question and answer session at the end. So thank you again, Genser. Now I would like to pass the floor to Pierluigi Cara from RIA, which is going to take us through the cyber range part of the CyberWiser.eu project. So, Pierluigi, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Yeah, I think yes. I share my screen. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Hello, I'm Pierluigi Gara from REA Group, a company focused on space and security environment. I'm taking care of Cyber Range platform at European Space Agency deployed in Belgium. We can go here. Okay, so we can start with a Cyber Range key concept. Of course, what is a cyber range is a recent concept. In most of the cases, we can summarize a cyber range as a multi-purpose environment of it could be fully virtualized, physical or hybrid. So just something virtual and some other component physical. This environment should cover the 3 main needs. So the training. For example, you want to share knowledge or improve awareness in your company, but also in general, because as Mario said before, the attack surface is quite big. Then should help you in research and development. For example, you want deploying some special architecture, some software, or whatever you want, whatever is your solution you want to try to explore, that could help you to fight against those attacks. And third, test and evaluation. For example, performing a penetration testing on the environment you created or on the hardware you want to include in your solution, whatever you want. At the end, all these tests should be taken in a safe environment. Usually it's isolated. So we will see, for example, the training. These are the space available at the European Space Agency in Belgium. Okay, Cyber Range is the virtual environment. Of course, when you have a fully virtualized environment in the beginning, could be a little bit more expensive, but at the end, allow to the trainers and trainees to perform a multiple realistic training scenario with a fraction of cost and effort needed for building and configuring similar on the physical platform. On the next generation ranges, the freedom of configuring and modeling the training scenario is in real time. It's really available for trainers. Let's think for a moment. In the case in your cyber range, you have the most common OS or just the very uncommon. It's up to you. It's based on what you want to do with the training. And you can start drawing your scenario with those machines and run it in a few minutes. It's really valuable. You can also change it in a few clicks. We can pass to Recession Development. Of course, the critical infrastructure, as I said before, sometimes it's not possible to fully virtualize, so you want to include in your ranges. Usually these infrastructure at a risk of cyber range attacks. Being aware of the risk from early stage of system, as Genser said before, the early warning system. So it's vital for building secure infrastructure. Then the realistic emulation environment facilitate the experimentation, evaluation of early prototype and design verification testing. This part, test and evaluation. So on this part, the cyber range provided frameworks where experts can analyze and examine cyber attack technologies under realistic conditions. As I said before, you can build your system, put your solution, your architecture, your software, and include what it's already developed or deployed to the customer, and check what is going on, could happen, and how you can mitigate. So this critical system can be tested securely in realistic test framework that facilitate incident management and response. Of course, you can also do a training for your security personnel. Now I'll present you the next generation cyber range. This is the interface we have now in our CyberRangeWiser.eu. As you can see, the platform leverages an advanced feature like the timeline or detailed design scenario for very complex network application, a wide digital library, of course, containing all the possible OS and a lot of application you can install on the various OS. Some virtual and network routing semi-automatic configuration on the platform. It's available a different kind of firewall and routing with the typical routing protocol. You can configure or not. You can add yours or use what it's already configured. Then you have the possibility, as I said before, the timeline. So the event scheduling during the scenario design. You can say at time 0, after 10 minutes, 20, you can set. So it's maybe for your environment is 15, 30, whatever. You can set, configure the time, configure the event, the scripts, and whatever. It's really a full suite of cross-learning tools, also for deploying these remotely. This is the screenshot where you can draw your scenario. So the platform will leverage additional advanced feature of next generation cyber range. So the real-time overview of event in active scenario, an automatic performance evaluation of trainee, and this was explained before by Genser, and full suite of attacking and productivity tools for complex scenario. And the teacher, the trainer, can in every moment access every machine and see what is going on. So he can help, he can suggest or just see what the trainee is doing. The core of CyberWiser is based on the Cybersecurity Test Evaluation Framework, CTEF, that is developed by RIA Group in the context of first Cybersecurity Center of Excellence for the European Space Agency. As I told before, this platform is deployed in Redu, Belgium. A complete platform, the CTEF, allows CyberWiser to be already deployed on a preliminary version, leveraging on a set of consolidated features, including the design, so detailed scenario design, the digital library with all the OS, router, whatever, and the Of course, it's also possible to modify, delete app, running, deploy a lot of scenarios. The advanced training scenario features are based on the existing tool. And this is the list of the tools developed by every company. All these tools are improved during this project. So we have the monitoring sensor, the Excel CM, the risk assessment engine, decision support system, the X-Opera, the X-Runtime, and the cross-learning platform. All these tools will help the project to reach the goal. So thank you. And for any question, I'm here. If you want to also write to the main contact, it's up to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Pierluigi. Really nice insights on the CyberWiser.eu platform. So again, if you have any question from Pierluigi on a technical, maybe on a more technical side, please write it into the question chat. So now I would like to give the floor to Peter Meyer from EO, German company. Hi, Peter. Can you hear us?
Hi, good morning. Can you see my presentation already on my screen? Does that work?
No, I think you need to share your screen. Yeah, now yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, thank you for the invite and good morning, everybody. My name is Peter Meyer. I work for IO as, let me check how the technique works here. As a senior project manager, run a security portal called Botfry.de. Was a former project coordinator of the FP7 project ACDC. Some might remember what that. And also advisory board member at a startup called SoSafe, running a security awareness platform, and also member of the stakeholder expert board at this project here. I'm going to talk a little bit about the challenges really on key security initiatives and especially in regards of security. And here's some numbers from the cybersecurity workforce study from ISC from the last year. And one of the big key issues identified that there is a low security awareness among end users. That's not only in companies, but also at home. People still click on emails, still don't use safe passwords, but also across the industry, we don't have enough skilled cybersecurity professionals out there. When you look, for example, at the latest security breaches, again, it's always human failures in there, and that might also be one of the reasons of lacking skills across the experts. Most companies also still see inadequate funding on IT security infrastructure. That comes along also that the management support is really lacking. And also one of the big struggles that there is still too much data to analyze. You can buy the tools, but at the end, you still need skilled people to analyze this data, to run through your organization and so on. So there's a lot of challenges ahead of us still. And what else you can see right now is still some challenges, and there is a slightly changing mindset on IT security and especially also awareness. Right now, one of the biggest challenges is solving the skill gaps crisis because it requires a different way of thinking for organizations, but also for talents. One of the goals is really to cultivate a security mindset as a priority for any organization. As you saw on the graph before, management still only slowly adopts to the importance of cybersecurity and training. It is still not top priority for a CEO or CFO. But what we can see through multiple studies is that the awareness budgets and security budgets are increasing. Doesn't matter if it's just an IT company, you can see it everywhere. I've been lately to the ITSA conference and Expo in Germany, and cybersecurity and awareness across employees, the weakest factor, were the top findings, or one of the key things I saw as a trending topic. And also from an academic perspective, more and more universities recognizing the need to prepare the students on cybersecurity. This starts with coding on security by demand and so on. And you can see a lot of efforts that it's really progressing. Let me just see. Here are some points how the EU is helping organizations. For example, most of you probably noticed European Cybersecurity Month going on in October, I think, since 2012 in Europe. The NISA has a nice up-to-date database, of course, certification programs, and a lot of education sharing platforms, good practices. We have 4 competence network pilot projects across Europe. For example, Sparta, ECHO, Concordia, or CybeSec for Europe. More information on the EU websites. But also activities like the European Cybersecurity Challenge. Congratulations to Romania this year. I think they were the winners. But we also have some EXO and Horizon 2020 funding, for example, like projects like CYBERWISER or Threat Arrest, but there are many other projects around there. The EXO working group also reported on education awareness and training, and one of the key findings is that the commoditization of higher education with rising costs and growing numbers of students comes up with several challenges, and for corporations, but also for students. One of the things is that the new generation Z simply grew up with e-learning and consider this already as a matter of course. I don't know how many people go out there or grew up with just watching YouTube tutorials on cybersecurity and all different other stuff. And also universities struggle really with the risk that they lose students to online learning platforms because these can better scale and definitely provide a service at a lower price. It's not has to be a simple YouTube video, it can be also professional e-learning. Another big problem we have to face during the next years is still the lack of enough skilled experts across the industry, not only in the EU. This is probably a worldwide program. And to satisfy the growing demand for skilled cybersecurity professionals, there are some recommendations to do. So first thing is really to expand educational opportunities at all levels, and also to increase the number of qualified educators. We need to create synergies between educational paths and training possibilities at the workplace, reach out to skilled unemployed and displaced workers, because we have a lack of employees and there is a lot of opportunity. And also we need to go out to create the fundamentals for a lifelong learning in cybersecurity, because learning never stops, especially in cybersecurity. One of the biggest challenges is also to get more diversity in cybersecurity. We need more gender diversity, inclusiveness, and we need to inform and encourage girls and women to engage in cybersecurity careers, because that's no big secret. If you go to IT security events, conferences, expos, it's mostly male, and there's definitely a lot of space for diversity in the next years. We also saw at some points how the training delivered matters really, and when you go out for remote and on-site courses, enable teams to train remotely from a satellite location or on-site with a live instructor. Think with lack of staff again, you have more remote people working. It's one of these new work things that people work everywhere, and from that point, you work more and more remote and also have to come up with the proper training. Also, training needs to be self-paced. Working without deadlines, putting pressure on people usually doesn't help, especially if it's a topic like IT security, which is not attractive compared to other trainings, for example. And one goal is really to allow trainees to consume the material at their own pace and also with their own working styles. We also just can recommend that the training should be interactive, usually best with a live instructor. That doesn't need to be a person sitting there. That can be just somebody remote through a chat. But asking trainees really to work with real-time questions to get feedback usually help. And another thing you can see is really look at the course length. It needs to be customized or fit to every organization and their needs. That can be a format with a 5-minute training chapter lesson where you can just skip or just move on the next day. It can be a simply 30-minute how-to training, but it also could be something that goes on for one day or 5 days, just to development courses to improve skills at a big level. Also, one thing, in-course labs, exercise and evaluations based on real-time world scenarios have to be proven available. So basically, what I want to say with that is people need to figure out really what the problem is. You need to take them and show them, okay, this is what could happen to you, this could happen to my company, and if you do something wrong, our company gets hacked, we get a ransomware, at the end you don't get a Christmas bonus, for example, because our company makes too much losses. And another thing is really micro-learning. Don't do too oversized trainings. They can best do it when they got time, and nobody can avoid 1 hour per day just to do e-learning. So if you just split it up over maybe half a year, 5 minutes per week, it should be still effective. Summarized, some points from my side. If you do training, talk and adopt to the language of the trainees and not vice versa. So people really need to understand what they're doing, and they know it's really hard when you start training basics just to explain people, for example, what a DDoS is, or just IT tech terminology. A normal person in the accounting department or in sales or even human resources doesn't even know. Security training also should never stop. It's an ongoing process. What we also see is that gamification, interactive formats usually bring more success. Based on organizations, it's always good to incentivize the trainees or the training itself. When people see a reward, usually be additional motivation. It's also important to adapt training methods to corporate culture, and the training usually needs to be communicated in a proper way. Outline, tell the people what the risk is not doing such a training, or also make the risk tangible for the employees in this organization. So basically outline what can happen. And generally, there's nothing more lame than IT security training and awareness. And I think one of the goals should simply say, make IT security training awareness more sexy in the future. So that's it from my side. Any questions?
Thank you, Peter. Really nice to hear from you. Really helpful insights on how the Europe is doing, but clearly, as you presented, there's a long way to do it to instill a proper cybersecurity culture into the organization, governments, and general public. So thank you very much. Yes, we do have some questions. We have a couple of questions coming from the audience. So I would like to go to the first one, which is actually directed to Genser from Sintef. So Genser, so in your presentation, you proposed a solution to select countermeasure to tackle the cyber risk. So the audience is asking, what kind of method are you using to select them, if I understood correctly?
Yeah, so the question was that it says, have you proposed a solution to select the best countermeasures for the risk treatment? If there is, what methodology are you using? So this is a very interesting question. And we have been working on this. And the question is about, so what we do consider is, first of all, a cost for the treatment itself. And then we also have to what extent the treatment is effective based on what you want to treat. So as part of risk modeling, we do also create something called risk treatment diagrams. And as part of that process, we do identify a set of treatments. And when we implement them into the countermeasure simulator, we, as I mentioned, include a cost, which sometimes is not so easy to identify. And but the purpose is to show that some treatments are more costly than others, and some treatments are more effective than others, depending on what you want to, let's say, what you want to mitigate. Having said that, the second perspective is that it's based on the exercise itself. So in the cyber range, we are interested in letting the trainee do a selection, and based on the selection to evaluate the training. So this means if a trainee selects a treatment that is very expensive, but still within budget, then that's perhaps a good selection. But if it's above the budget, then it's not so good. So we do not, currently at least, do not give a prioritized list of treatments because that would make the exercise easy. We would give the solution to the trainee, so to speak, in that sense. But again, it depends on the exercise itself.
Yep, thank you very much, Jens. Really nice and clear. So we have another question, this time for Pierluigi from RIA. The question is strictly related to the cyber range provided in CyberWISER. So the question is, do you provide only prepackaged scenarios inside of the cyber range, or you provide also tailored scenarios?
Yeah, we provide a scenario prepackaged in case we already have what the customer wants. In case not, we develop any scenario based on the request of the customer. We can start from scratch, so develop a scenario just for the request, or start from a scenario already present and adapt it, creating the missing piece. That could be, for example, a machine with a specific software, a specific OS, or in case it's not possible to virtualize, we can include into the environment the appliance. That could be a firewall or a SCADA or whatever. So we provide both at the end.
Okay, thank you, Pierluigi. Yes, this links perfectly with what we said in the presentation before. So the needs for customized, let's say, training and making the training, let's say, coming more close to the real case, let's call it scenario. And then we have the last question from Peter. Peter, you highlighted the human factor in your presentation. What would be your advice on organizations that how they can create a cybersecurity culture, including long-term continuous training?
So I think you need to bring on board every stakeholder. So first of all, you need the management who completely backs it up, provides you a long-time budget. So for example, if you buy security training, you should have a strategy how to continue afterwards because it never stops. But also you need to bring on board stakeholders of the company like HR. You need to convince IT, but also to reach out to the influencers within the teams and organization. For example, if you create a security question to your IT department, for example, asking if this is email spam, is this email phishing, and so on. You need to have a culture in an organization that such an IT request is seen as something useful and not as something annoying or creating additional workload for the IT department. So you need to keep up the old motivation, continuously sending in these requests. For example, regarding CEO fraud, when you get a fake mail in the name of your CEO, you need to have a culture within organizations that you can reach out to your CFO, CTO, or whatever, asking him, did you send this mail to me? Is this real? And so on, or just come up really to live this culture. You also need to be transparent on topics, for example, like the 7th sense. If you have an all-hands meeting, why don't you add just 2 or 3 slides on IT security at the end, where you just say, okay, these are the latest trends. These is, for example, the interim results of our security awareness training, and watch out to this and this. So make it really present and talk about it, be transparent, and just make it more attractive and get it into everybody's mind and really bring on board everybody in the company and just highlight how important this is to the overall success business success and so on. So I think these are the points we need to go to.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. Yeah, I think a key is to involve basically all company department. Otherwise, it's not just an IT department issue, and it should not be considered as such. Okay, so there are no other questions. So I would like to thank all the speakers for their really interesting presentations and for your time. And I would also like to thank all attendees for joining our second webinar. We will be doing more in the future. So if you want to keep updated with us, I suggest you visit our website, cyberwiser.eu, register on that. And if you want to get even more involved, if you want to have advice on how to shape your customized training, please do register for our events, and we can basically give you support for free. So thanks again, and we will keep you in touch. Obviously, all the slides and the recording of the webinar will be available on the website, and we will be sending you a follow-up message right after the webinar. So thank you again, and see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.